More insights in terms of what is happening at this moment in Bangladesh. We're being joined by Dr. Debapriya Bhattacharya, who's joining us live from Dhaka. Dr. Bhattacharya is an economist and also a public policy analyst. So thank you very much indeed, sir, for joining us here and beyond. The question that a lot of people, of course, want to know is Sheikh Hasina, over the course of the last decade and a half, had been such a popular leader in Bangladesh, who'd won election after election. But what do you think went wrong this time round? Did she make the cardinal mistake of not having her ear close to the ground and failed to sense the anger amongst the people?
Thank you. I think the development narrative, which is usually espoused by the former Prime Minister and supported by her party people, had significant flaws, because the development narrative did not take note of the fact that not everybody benefited from that development which ensued. And there was significant corruption, mismanagement of public resources, and partisan distribution of social welfare protections. And at the same time, there was important reforms which were to be undertaken in the banking sector, in the money market, in public administration and resource generation, domestic resource generation. These were not being undertaken because of the influence of a certain group of oligarchs. So that created a serious problem in terms of taking the development process into the next phase. But more importantly, the last three elections had been definitely much disputed. Right. The lack of participation and lack of neutrality. So the people were really unhappy because they didn't get the chance to voice their discontent or their choices. Right. So this combination of lack of, inclusive development and lack of voice in a democratic process, these two together really created a groundswell within the middle class and particularly amongst the younger community. So what we see is an upsurge of the public discontent which has accumulated over time, and there was no political sensitivity in resolving these problems as it happens in an authoritarian system, and that's what we are seeing at this moment.
Yeah, a lack of sensitivity is what you've pointed out. Now, Sheikh Hasina's son, who spoke with WION a little while back, he said that the people of Bangladesh have been ungrateful for the work that Sheikh Hasina has done during her prime ministership. He, in fact, even went on to say that the tenure of Sheikh Hasina would be seen as the golden period in the history of Bangladesh. And further, he warned that Bangladesh will turn into another Pakistan. What do you make of that assessment by him?
I think this is a frustrated person speaking. And I will let the people judge how the people will look back and assess the tenure of Madam Hasina. The issue is, at the end of the day, we will have to give the people the opportunity to speak their mind and choose their own representatives. So that opportunity they were deprived of. That is the reality. And the point one would ask, why did the 15 years of rule really bring us to such a situation when we cannot really deal with the people's aspiration and manage the country in a peaceful way? That would be a challenge or issue. In fact, the people of Bangladesh will take lessons that how not in the future repeat such mistakes and what kind of safeguards we can put in. As we speak, there is a power vacuum in Dhaka. The new government is yet to take charge. There are challenges in putting that government together. There are very different types of forces now, currents and undercurrents. There are the forces and individuals who this is the hangover of the earlier regime, and the new regime is also could not take shape because there are high expectations from the youth movement, whereas there are also limitations on how do you run a statecraft. So we are at this moment in a serious power vacuum, and the more prolonged it gets, that the anarchy will continue in that way. So we'll have to give the next 24 hours and see how it takes shapes, whether the parliament is dissolved, whether martial law is being announced, or what type of caretaker government we put in place. I think the choice of Professor Yunus, and yes, is a choice, but we are not yet sure that is a clear choice at this moment.
You've been talking about power vacuum that we witnessed at this moment, and also the role that's been played by the army. It's difficult to predict as to what is now going to happen in Bangladesh over the course of the next 24, 48 hours. But what do you think about the role of the army, and what do you think would be the role of Dr. Yunus in the days ahead? Because a lot of people are suggesting that he should perhaps be in an advisorial position for the interim government.
As you can see, the army at one point in time could not really ignore the noise on the streets. And there were hundreds and thousands of people were getting ready to come into the city, breaking the curfew. So they had to take the extreme measure, and the former prime minister resigned and fled the country. So the army theoretically was the catalyst in this case. They responded to the noise on the street. But at the same time, we see that the army chief said that they are not declaring martial law, they are not declaring emergency, but at the same time they promise that to ensure law and order, but we see that that is not really happening at this moment. So as I see, there is a power vacuum, and there is also lack of presence of the law enforcement agencies or forces on the ground, including the police. And the police had been somehow made the villain of the peace. And so the coordination is also a major issue. Leadership, coordination, participation at this moment is the major challenge.
All right, we'll have to leave there.
So we have to get to a predictable governance structure.
Absolutely. We're completely out of time. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Debapriya Bhattacharya, for joining us and getting us all those insights there.
Thank you.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.